Welcome to Great Life Coaching. Today's the hot one. We're going to talk about critical race theory, the great state of Texas, and how it all affects us psychologically. Let's get into it. Let me start by just notifying you that this is not my area of expertise as far as critical race theory goes. Matter of fact, I really didn't study it until recently in the last couple months. But critical race theory is premised on the idea that racism is not an aberration, but rather it is a systemic and woven into social fabric. So in the 60s and 70s, scholars got together that decided to, actually their lawyers too, they decided to get into how our laws and bills affect race. So going into our history, we know that our country is what it is because we were profitable on the backs of slaves brought from Africa. And that is inherent still today, and we can see that in incarceration rates. So our population of black and Latinos is very small. Well, let's just cover blacks. Blacks are about a small percentage of us. However, if you go to the penitentiaries, they cover a lot more percentage wise than the others. Why is that? Well, some believe, and I agree, that there are certain laws and bills that are specifically targeted, and we know this most recently, Jim Crow law. And of course, we also see how laws are upheld. So we know that marijuana use is used the same when it comes throughout whites and blacks. However, more blacks will get in trouble for having possession of it than whites will. More will serve time, more will be taken away from their families. And we must take a look at that because that's apparent to me that those who enforce the law are enforcing it more harshly on others than they are on the whites. Earlier today on Facebook, I saw a friend of mine had posted something about Texas not wanting to teach certain histories about minorities in school. So, I trust him as a source, but I went ahead and did some research and I found this. Texas Senate passes bill removing Martin Luther King and suffrage from required curriculum. And this is as of July 21st. July 8, 2021. State senators in Texas passed a bill on Friday that removes requirements that schools include topics like Native American history and historical documents related to suffrage and civil rights movements, building upon previous past legislation in the state. The bill SB 3 removes requirements to teach about civil rights work by Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, Martin Luther King Jr., and Frederick Douglass. Works by women suffragists are also no longer required to be taught. So in Texas here, this bill is not going through currently because the Democrats are in DC because they're pretty much doing a filibuster to try to stop Republicans from putting stricter requirements to voting rights. And they're making requirements like no overnight voting, no 24/7 voting, just all sorts of requirements that are pinpointed to minorities. So it looks like Republicans here in Texas is trying to not just erase history, but they're trying to make sure that history is taught the same way it was since forever. It's almost like they're trying to deny that Native Americans are no longer here in Texas or weren't here in Texas. Like slave trade was not a thing. Galveston, Texas was one of the largest slave trades of America. And also things like the Alamo. People don't know that the history of that. People came to Texas after the Civil War because they wanted to continue to have slaves. And Texas was a free state at the time. And Galveston being a large port for slavery, they still had the right to own property. So let's talk about the psychology this has on minorities. Number one, unfortunately, the majority of poor and those disenfranchised are minority: black, Hispanic, Latinos, Native Americans, Asians. But we're not being taught our history in school. So for example, my history includes that of Spanish and Native American, making me Mexican American. I didn't hear about Cesar Chavez in school. I learned about him through a movie. And of course, after that, I did my own research. So, growing up, my heroes were Davy Crockett, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. I didn't know that there were people like me to look up to. And I didn't understand what effect it had on me. That tells a child that only this type of certain people can be our heroes, can be examples of what we need to be. And when we don't have examples in our heritage, or it's lost in translation, lost in history, then we start, as a people, starting to look down on ourselves. And this has been going on for centuries. So the effect it has on our people is immeasurable. So just think, we do things because our parents did it, and because their parents did it, and their parents did it, but they don't understand why we do certain things. And it's all based on their experience when they were way, way long time ago. And if you're black, and it's sad to say, but you could probably trace down your great grandparents, or maybe one step before that, and realize that they might have been slaves. Now, you don't understand why you don't have the things that other people have, but it's because of systemic racism. And it's because there's laws, there's certain things that were in place to keep you down in a certain social status. And sometimes people just give up, and they just feel like they can't climb out. They can't pull themselves up by the bootstraps because they don't have any boots. So the negative effects are crime, lack of mental health, lack of being able to go to college, lack of education, lack of complete family. Fathers are sent to prison. Just we start 100 feet behind the normal white person. And I'm not blaming all white people. I don't think we should say white people are at fault. However, we do need those in power to take responsibility for the past. Here's the psychology of those in power. Those in power want more and don't want to lose the power. So they'll do whatever it takes to keep money, to keep power, to keep certain people down so that way they can continue to rise. They preach education, school, and they can afford to send their kids to school. And for us, we can't afford school. We want to go to school, but we end up taking out loans that are just impossible to pay off sometimes, and you can't claim bankruptcy. You can't get rid of it. You have to pay it off. So the psychology behind both parts is one wants to keep power, and the other one doesn't know how to get the power. This video is not put together very well, and I apologize about that. There's a lot of emotions wrapped around it because I feel like I'm in the middle. I'm not white, I'm not black, but I lean more towards the black side because I have a black wife, black kids, and I've never really considered myself white. And I do have a large percentage of my heritage is Spanish white, but I don't look the part. And I've been blessed, and I've gone to school. I joined the military. I was able to climb the social ladder because of the military, I think. And I'm grateful for that. And I understand that's not for everybody. Not everybody can do that. Only a small percentage. So what are the rest of us supposed to do? Get into debt? I really think what we need to do is to get together. Not hate on each other because we're a different color or we're different races. Even within race, we hate each other because the tone of our skin. But the only way to really prosper is to put our thoughts and ideas together, to inform each other, to educate each other. As a parent, I'm going to make sure that my kids, even though they might not get what they need from school as far as race and how it affects us, I'm going to make sure my children are educated in that. And I'm going to make sure that my grandkids are educated in that as well. This has turned kind of into a rant, so I apologize about that. And my brother, Mr. Wright, if you're watching, I appreciate you. But this is a battle. This is an everyday thing. This is more than a grind. This is more than. This is our future. And we might not be able to make any changes now, but we have to change for our kids, for our future. And to be honest, I don't see any great leaders out there like Martin Luther King or Cesar Chavez and Mr. Barack Obama or Michelle Obama. If you're watching this, we need your help. We need you to. I'm sorry, we need you to step up and do more. I don't know who else to call upon. I feel like you would be a good example to follow. Maybe I need to look into myself and become that leader. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm called to do that. But thanks so much for watching. Sorry about the long video, but just something I had to get off my chest. It's more therapeutic for me than anything else. Thanks so much for watching Great Life Coaching. Hope you have a good day.